In this video, I'll be commentating over a meal plan that was designed to boost testosterone levels naturally. The meal plan is created by a self-proclaimed testosterone coach. I'll be reviewing the video in which he presents his meal plan protocol. He does mention that his meal plan works for him, which is great. He looks great. But he also mentions that different protocols, different strategies need to be used for different individuals and things like that. So the plan with this video is to provide you with context, understanding, so you can make your own protocol based off of the information that will give you his meal plan protocol. And yeah, let's get into it. This is the video I'll be reviewing it, so I'm just going to play the video. I'll stop it when I want to say something, and yeah, let's get into it.
So guys, just woke up and today I'm going to take you through a full day of eating on a lean bulk.
So he's lean bulking, meaning his goal is to put on muscle without putting on any body fat. A lot of protocols out there are aimed at like dirty bulking, which is eating as much food as possible just to put on any weight. His goal with a lean bulk would be just putting on muscle without putting on any fat. So that's what he's at.
On how I put on muscle mass without.
So the protocol that he's going to go over is what he does, and this works for him, and it's amazing.
Not getting fat as fuck. So you already know, to start off the day, we're over here getting some El Agua, some reverse osmosis.
So he's starting his day with water, and thankfully he's using a reverse osmosis filter. If you're drinking, let's say, tap water that has fluoride in it, it can really mess with your thyroid hormones and things like that. So he's using filtered water.
El Agua, best of the best. Fill this up. And then we also start with some Baja Gold Sea Salt, electrolytes, and water to start off the day.
Okay. He's starting off with water and electrolytes. Let's see what he says.
Already know. Get a pinch right here. Let it absorb in the gums. And then chug it down with some water. Now, I said this is a full day of eating, right? But this is essential. If you don't wake up in the morning and have electrolytes with water, you're gonna feel low energy right off the gate. When you're sleeping, your body needs electrolytes. So why the fuck would you wake up, chug some coffee that's gonna dehydrate you, make you feel like shit?
Okay, so he said a few things that, looking from a popular media sense, is true. It's correct, because coffee apparently dehydrates you, and when you wake up, you need to hydrate yourself. Let's get down to the basics. So for an individual to hydrate themselves, they need three components, which is glucose, electrolytes, and water. In this equation, he only consumed water. He was sleeping, so his liver glycogen stores were depleted. So he's not getting any of the glucose because he's depleted. Maybe because he's young, his liver glycogen stores can go for a longer period of time. But as you age, as you get older, if you're someone with a compromised metabolic state, the biggest issue is liver glycogen storage. So he's not getting any glucose and he's only consuming water. If you just consume water, it can dilute the soup, you could say, because you're flushing everything out. Thankfully, he had some salt with it, which doesn't completely mess with the situation, but he's not getting any carbohydrates, any glucose to actually optimize hydration.
Don't drink coffee right away. You need to wait an hour and a half to 2 hours before you take your first sip of coffee, because your cortisol is still high and you need
I remember when I got into the industry, I thought cortisol is just a stress hormone, but it is a stress hormone, but what is cortisol? It's a glucocorticoid, which means it's high. It helps with regulating blood sugar, right? The reason why it's high in the morning is because you spend 7, 8, 9 hours without consuming any carbohydrates. And especially when you're sleeping, because darkness and coldness is a stressor to the body, and deep sleep is a protection against it. This is why animals hibernate during the winter, while we probably just run on really high stress hormones, especially if our hormones are compromised. The reason why the cortisol is high is because he's not consuming any glucose. So the idea of like fasting and intermittent fasting and doing all those things, because I used to do it. I used to do intermittent fasting for 3 years straight. I used to do 3-day fasts, all of those things. And those things really messed me up. But when you're young, you can get away with it. When you're older, when you're in a more compromised state, when you start fasting, your hands and feet are probably going to get cold. You're going to get anxious. You're going to get stressed out. Things like that. And he mentioned that you should not consume any caffeine first thing in the morning. If you're an individual that constantly thinks about caffeine, and when you wake up, the first thing on your mind is coffee, that's a sign that you're hypothyroid. And having caffeine is a way that your body is signaling to you to self-medicate, right? Because your metabolic rate is low and your body has found that caffeine increases the metabolic rate. Same thing with smoking, same thing with masturbation, same with like you wake up first thing in the morning, you want to go on your phone because you get that rush from, I don't know, watching TikToks, watching the news, because you get the adrenaline going to get nutrients into like glucose or free fatty acids into the bloodstream. So all of those things are self-medicating. He's correct in saying that you shouldn't consume black coffee first thing in the morning. It's true, because what caffeine does, it increases glucose consumption. It increases the use of carbohydrates. And if you're in a depleted state, if you consume coffee, it's still going to increase the glucose consumption. It doesn't care whether it gets from the food that you consumed or from gluconeogenesis, which means gluconeogenesis, the creation of new glucose, which can happen from literally breaking down your own amino acids, like your own muscle tissue, and converting it into glucose. Because at the end of the day, your brain, for example, needs glucose to function. That's its primary fuel, besides like free fatty acids, like keto acids, things like that. But glucose is very important. On the other hand, if you're in a good metabolic state, you are healthy, having caffeine first thing in the morning with sugar, milk, can be actually very beneficial, and it actually can improve your metabolic rate. It can improve like bowel movements. It can help with bowel movements, which is really important, because you don't want all that sitting there and like reabsorbing all the endotoxin and causing issues. So having caffeine, which improves bowel movements, things like that, is very beneficial. So yeah, let's get into it.
You know, lower it. You need to make sure you get hydrated, and you don't want to crash in the afternoon, and your receptors will crash.
The crash usually comes from having caffeine in a depleted state, and like you're running on adrenaline and cortisol, and let's say later on you have something to eat, and that food lowers the stress response, creating that crash. It's the same reason why some people, when they wake up in the morning and they have something to eat, they feel extremely tired. Maybe they want to go to sleep because they woke up in a stressed state. In an optimal state, when you wake up in the morning and you have something to eat, it should give you energy. You can track that by your heart rate and temperature rhythms and things like that. So the idea of the crash, that's due to the caffeine causing a stress response. It's nothing to do with the caffeine, it's to do with you and your liver.
If you have it in the first hour and a half. So that's why we just do the water, electrolytes, and then now I'm gonna go for my 45-minute walk. All right,
So then he went for a 45-minute walk. Um, in a depleted state, if you are hypothyroid and you wake up and you just drink water and then you go for a 45-minute walk, that's one strategy for like really stressing your body out and being in this like hyper stress state. Most people in the morning, like if you're like super groggy, you're pessimistic, you're negative minded, you're anxious, I don't know, you have these strong thoughts, you don't want to be around anyone, that has to do with low, like very high serotonin and low glucose. And that can be fixed by consuming enough sugar and fueling your body, getting the caffeine in. The caffeine may be problematic for some people, especially if you're super hypothyroid state, because you need to refuel yourself, rehydrate yourself properly with electrolytes and glucose. And then after, when you have the caffeine, you get it to work, starts fueling the brain, you'll notice your breathing starts getting deeper because cell respiration increases, which means thyroid hormones are increasing and things like that. Also, when you produce thyroid hormones, T4, and it goes into the liver decides whether the T4, which is inactive thyroid, gets converted to T3, which is active thyroid, which boosts the metabolic rate, boosts testosterone, boosts androgens, which the goal is protective hormones. Thyroid hormone is the foundation. Then the second thing it can do is, it can do many things, but the main two is T3 or reverse T3. So reverse active thyroid, which down regulates your metabolic rate. It activates when you're under stress, when you're fasting. So if you're doing a lot of fasting, you're not eating first thing in the morning, you do all these fasts, that's a one way to start increasing your reverse thyroid hormones. And then 45-minute walk. Thank God he's not going on a jog or doing sprints or anything like that. He's just going on a nice pace walk. But yeah, let's keep it going.
Just got back from the walk, so you know what that means. Black coffee and raw butter time. So many people see it on my stories every single day. I don't know. It's just what I like to do. It gives you so much energy.
So the next thing he does is he has a coffee and some butter.
Now I know the raw butter that I have here, you guys can't get, but regular butter would be fine if you want to do that. But this will give you energy throughout the whole day because the butter digests so slowly with the caffeine. So even 3-4 p.m. when you have that crash, this stuff.
There is something about caffeine and free fatty acids. I remember when I used to do the ketogenic diet, you would do a lot. It's a bulletproof coffee. You'd have caffeine with coconut oil and it will hit like a brick. But for me, you felt like you're running on pure stress hormones. Like you're just super high alert, like tunnel vision.
Will literally get you through it. So, got some organic black coffee. I mean, obviously this thing's not the best rig.
Yeah, he's right. I remember when I bought a coffee machine, I looked inside because it's just convenience, things like that. You look inside and everything's plastic, the way the water goes through and everything. I ended up sending it back because, yeah, it's not optimal. One of the best things is just a manual French press made out of glass or metal, making sure the metal's good. Maybe if there's coffee machines, maybe espresso machines that don't have like plastic and things like that, because plastic is an endocrine disruptor, and especially when you're heating it, you're leaching all of these chemicals into the coffee, and you're just having a nice estrogenic drink first thing in the morning. And this is an example of most people nowadays. They use fluoridated water. They just put straight from the tap. Then they use this plastic induced coffee maker, and they have about 3 to 5 coffees a day. Then they're using fluoridated toothpaste with mint, which both lower testosterone, and you're showering with the fluoridated water. all of those things add up. Especially if you've seen in the clip earlier, he used the osmosis water to drink from it, but then to wash his hands, he used the other water. I'm not sure if that's filtered, but if it's not, that has fluoride in it, you put it into your hand, it gets absorbed straight away. There's studies on this where they had a cup of water, tap water with fluoride, they measured it. He just placed his hand in it, took it out for a split second. They measured the fluoride level again and it was lower because your skin absorbs all of those things. So those small things add up, and this is what I help people optimize,
Definitely could be better. We've got the organic filters too, that's non-bleach. So just put the black coffee in there. And then we just toss the raw butter in. This is some good ass raw butter. You can just tell it's good. Look how yellow it is. Smells really good. And I just do like a spoonful. And I don't know, I'll track all my calories for today. But this is
like another thing I want to mention. What gets measured gets accomplished. He's bulking, so it's fine. So eating more calories is not like a bad thing. But let's say you're trying to like really optimize your diet for fat loss. Tracking those small things, like he put like, let's say 3/4 of a teaspoon, but maybe he measured, it was only half. And you do that a few times a day with sauces, with the cooking, with this, that adds up to completely set off your diet. So making sure, like if you want optimal results, you want to measure it. And that's super important, especially if you're not getting results. If you're doing what you're doing and you're getting results, perfect. But dialing in on something like that, if you're not getting results, is super important.
This is probably max 150, probably 100 calories. Just, butter coffee, 0 calories. So just mix that in there. And that's pretty much it. If you wanted to get spicy with it, a lot of people like to put Ceylon cinnamon in their coffee. I just do not like how it tastes with coffee. I really like I enjoy the bitter and then salty taste from the butter. So I don't like adding this because it makes it sweet. But if you really want to make some bulletproof coffee, you can add some Ceylon cinnamon. And yeah, this is what I drink after 2 hours after waking up. It's been, I think, an hour and a half. But yeah, I'll drink this and then I'll fast another 3 hours after this and then we'll have our first meal.
So he's obviously doing that like a intermittent fasting kind of approach. Now he's having coffee with butter, which I mentioned before. Caffeine increases glucose consumption, and just having butter is not really optimal. The way I would personally go about it is have plenty of sugar, have milk with it. It feels nice. Cinnamon is good. It boosts testosterone levels and it improves insulin sensitivity. But for some, cinnamon can be allergenic, serotonergic, can irritate the gut, things like that. And especially like if you're in a hypothyroid state, being in a state of low blood sugar can be very problematic, and foods that normally don't give you problems will give you problems if you're in a low blood sugar state. So keeping that in mind. And this is just like, for some people it works, especially when you're young, but as you get older, if you're in a compromised health state, things like that, those things matter,
So we'll cut to that. Alright guys, it's been 6 hours since we woke up. It's 3 p.m. right now. So now it's time for our first meal of the day. So the first thing I do before I actually cook the meal is I eat a piece of fruit to spike my insulin. So I'm going to do...
So he said he's having an orange to spike his insulin. If the goal is spiking insulin, orange, like overall fructose is insulin independent. meaning fructose doesn't need insulin to get into the cell. This is the same reason why when bears come out of hibernation, they consume a lot of honey to reverse their type 2 diabetic state, because type 2 diabetic state, because they're in a state of beta oxidation, which is fat burning. So type 2 diabetic state is when you consume carbohydrates in a primary beta oxidative state, and the carbohydrates have a problem to getting into the cell, hence why it increases insulin a lot, while fructose skips over that step, allowing proper cell respiration to begin and reverse the type 2 diabetic state. To break the fast, I think it's a good thing because he's using fructose, because he's been in like a beta oxidation state for like hours, because he hasn't consumed any carbohydrates. He's been just fat burning. But it's good that he does that, but his idea is because he's increasing insulin. Something, and I'll talk about it in a moment. Eggs are very insulinogenic. That will increase your insulin. But yeah, let's get into it.
An orange. Eat this orange, and then we'll actually cook up. So if you don't...
The thing with oranges also, just a side note, they're very good. Oranges are high in polyphenols, which inhibit the amino acid L-tryptophan. Well, they inhibit the enzyme tryptophan hydroxylase, which converts tryptophan into serotonin. And if you watched my video, serotonin is very like a hibernation hormone. So anything that lowers serotonin boosts testosterone. Just the way those polyphenols act on improving hormones is the same way testosterone and DHT works on improving mood and things like that. So oranges are amazing.
Don't know. Insulin is anabolic. Increases protein absorption. So that's why we eat the fruit before. Because you want to be in that anabolic state and absorb more protein. Alright, so we got 1.25 pounds ground beef. Got some rice boiling for...
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
And then we got, oh, I gotta go downstairs and get some duck eggs. And we're gonna use 2 duck eggs on the pan in the beef fat after this. This is 80-20 ground beef. So, when this is done cooking, I'm gonna put all the macros, the calories for this first meal on the screen to show you guys what. We'll be tracking the calories and macros through the whole day, and we'll analyze them at the end of the day when I'm completely done eating. You know you're bulking when you're gassed going up the stairs. Hella rice. Hella beef. And now we just pop these duck eggs on the pan in the beef fat. Boom. Alright, so the final calculations for this meal is a little over 2,000 calories. That's
So he's having 2,000 calories in that meal. And there's a lot to uncover here. So, first of all, he's having a lot of protein, and eggs. Eggs are very insulinogenic. If you have, for example, eggs first thing in the morning and you're in a compromised state, that can mess you up. I know Ray Pete talked about how he had a single egg and it made him faint because the drop in blood sugar was very quick. So what insulin does, it shuttles carbohydrates and amino acids into the cells, things like that, nutrients, all of those things. But if there's not enough carbohydrates to replace that, because has to be a certain level maintained within the bloodstream. So if there is not enough coming from your diet or glycogen stored from your muscle or your liver glycogen, it can come from gluconeogenesis, so stress hormones increase, breaking down your muscle tissue and things like that. To recover that, drop in blood sugar. So he's having 2 eggs and a lot of beef, 1 orange, he had that prior, and then rice. White rice is pretty nice. It absorbs pretty fast. It's better than brown rice, for example, because brown rice takes longer to absorb, and if you're in a compromised state, it can feed the gram-negative bacteria and increasing endotoxin production, things like that. White rice is on the better end because it digests quicker. But for some, white rice can be problematic because it feeds the gram-negative bacteria because it still takes time to digest. And then when it comes to macros, 120 grams of protein. So what I personally recommend, if you're having a lot of protein, always have a 2-to-1 ratio of carbohydrates to protein. So if you're having 100 grams of protein, at least having 200 grams of carbohydrates. In this case, he has a more of a 1-to-1, even higher protein in that case. For a lot of people, this can be problematic. If you're having a meal like this later in the day, it can cause insomnia, digestive issues, things like that. Especially he's coming from a state of like he's been fasting for a long period of time and then he's dumping a lot of protein. It can be problematic for some. What I personally recommend is having more carbohydrates in the morning. You replenish glycogen stores, and then having your protein, still enough carbohydrates with each meal, and then later in the day having more so carbohydrates and fats to then fuel your sleep and things like that. So yeah, let's see what he says further on.
That's including the butter from this morning. Just toss that in there. So 2,000 calories, I believe 119, 120 grams of protein, 98 grams of carbs, and probably like 130, 140 grams of fat. It will be on the screen. I don't know, but that's what I'm pretty sure that will be. And then the most important thing, cholesterol, right? You want to increase your testosterone. You need to make sure you're prioritizing cholesterol. So I think this...
So he talks about cholesterol. Does dietary cholesterol matter that much? Like, your body can produce its own cholesterol by consuming enough carbohydrates, for example. This is why the theory that sugar is bad for you comes from the same idea that cholesterol is bad for you, because your body can use sugar, carbohydrates to produce cholesterol. So if you're not consuming enough carbohydrates, you're not producing enough cholesterol. And if you're not consuming enough carbohydrates also, you're not activating your thyroid hormone. So you can consume all the cholesterol you want, but if you don't have thyroid hormone to then take T3, the LDL cholesterol and vitamin A to then produce pregnenolone, which is a precursor to testosterone, all of this doesn't really matter. I notice with a lot of people in this sphere, they have very ideal looking meal plans, but they lack foundation, which is like the things that I'm mentioning, like thyroid hormone, enough carbohydrates to activate those things, things like that. Also, he's consuming a lot of beef, a lot of like egg white, which is still there, which is high in tryptophan. Tryptophan is a precursor to serotonin, so it can be problematic. But yeah, let's continue.
Meal has around 1,300 milligrams, and the goal for today is 2.5 to 3 grams. So we're going to get there by the end of the day. But yeah, this is a very calorie dense meal, very protein dense meal. And the only thing I would change if I was cutting is the rice. I would either do only half a cup of rice or no rice. And what that would do is basically just decrease your calories, probably, 200-300, probably more on the 200 side. And then if you're cutting, 200 calories is a decent amount, and then just increasing the walking that you're doing. Like right now, I only went for a 45-minute walk. If I was cutting, I would just do 2 of those a day, decrease my carb intake, and I get shredded a lot quicker. When you're bulking or cutting, your diet should pretty much be the exact same, except for carbs, right? Because carbs aren't a necessary energy source.
He's correct in saying that carbohydrates are not essential, because your body can take protein that you're consuming or your own muscle tissue to produce carbohydrates because they are so important. That's the key. Carbohydrates are so important that your body goes out of its way to produce it from other macronutrients that you're consuming. So yes, carbohydrates are not essential to be consumed in the diet to get them, but you're probably in a stress state. Your body's not going to be functioning at its peak, because when you're doing that, let's say your body starts breaking down your own muscle tissue. It's leaching out L-tryptophan. L-tryptophan increases serotonin, lowers the metabolic rate. Just the way if you're consuming a lot of muscle meats in your diet, it mimics the same idea. But yeah.
The only reason I like to increase carbs on a bulk is because they're very easy to get down, and they'll just give you better pumps. Now, when you're cutting, you still want to have carbs, right? Like you need carbs for a good pump. I think they're very essential for testosterone, especially like fruit and honey. But those are the only carbs you need.
Yeah, carbohydrates are super important for testosterone levels, and it's more than just having a nice pump. Carbohydrates are important to give you energy to complete your day-to-day tasks. They're important for cell respiration, for making you warm so you're not cold all the time. They relax you. They increase brain function, because carbohydrates, when your heart rate increases, you're pumping more nutrients and glucose into the brain. That's why you feel better. Increases CO2. It increases hydration. For every gram of carbohydrates you consume, you hold on to 3 to 4 grams of water. So carbohydrates are super important. And also, the reason why I see a lot of guys benefit from high protein diets, which you'll see his overall diet for the day is super high in protein, is because when you're not consuming enough carbohydrates, your body will get the protein from your body will get the carbohydrates from the protein you're consuming. So he could actually do better, but look, it works for him. But someone else, if they're following, they could benefit from having higher carbohydrates and less protein, and they'll see better benefits and feel better, optimal digestion, things like that. But yeah, let's continue.
But yeah, this is the only meal that I eat until, my last meal of the day. It's this meal and then my other meal. The only reason I do 2 meals is because I don't have time to eat more than 2 meals. I have work, like you can see all my stuff set up here. I have calls all day. It's just more efficient to eat 2 meals. Now,
he mentioned he benefits more from eating 2 meals, which is fine. But if you're in a compromised state and your blood sugar is all over the place and your liver glycogen stores are being depleted extremely fast, you probably will need a frequent source of food, even drinking orange juice with like salt in it throughout the day to keep like parathyroid, aldosterone, cortisol, adrenaline low. Is super important, because for your body to heal, you can't get into a stress state. It's like if you have a cut and the scab is forming, you keep ripping it off, it won't really heal. For it to heal, you need to let it actually be in that healing state, right? It's like, yeah. Let's continue.
If you're really trying to bulk, I think 3 meals is a little more ideal.
And he is having much larger meals, which your body's digesting, things like that. It's using as it goes. But yeah.
Because you can kind of space it out, and like eating this much, like it doesn't, like this thing is massive, but look, this is a big ass bowl. Like not many people would be able to finish this. because I mean it's literally 2,000 calories in this bowl and 120 grams of protein. And for all the people who say you can't get more than 30 grams in one meal, that's been debunked so many times. So shut the hell up. But yeah, the next thing I'm gonna eat is my pre-workout snack. I guess you can say it's literally just raw honey and fruit and some electrolytes. But yeah, I'm gonna eat this meal and then we'll cut to when we get to that. What's wrong with me? Ah, the orange. All right, we finished the meal. Where's the bowl? Is it in there? Oh, yeah, it's right there. I'm gonna do it. But yeah, after I always eat a date for healthy digestion, so that's an extra. That one was massive, but like an extra 80 calories. But just so you guys knew, it's workout time. Pre-workout snack. You already know. We'll probably go with the really raw stuff. Oh yeah, that's some good stuff. We got honeycomb. We got some microplastic honey. So many options. But we're gonna go with the really raw stuff. So just a tablespoon of that.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
A little more. Just extra pump. What is that? Oh, what the? Get that shit out of here. Fucking Fairlife bullshit. Mineral salt. There's not even water here. Someone's water's right here, huh? I don't know whose water this is. Mineral salt. Get some of that in there. Get some of that in there. Last thing, golden kiwi. Finish it off with the golden kiwi. These things are amazing. Oh yeah.
So let's go over that. So you had honey, salt, and a kiwi. And he's doing that specifically as a pre-workout to get a better pump, which he obviously looks well. He's getting a nice pump. One thing I want to underline, because I get this question all the time, what should you eat before training to get the best pump or whatever? Your training performance, the pump and things like that is a byproduct of the diet that you had the day before. And if you're eating in a surplus or a deficit, that's mainly the most important things. The things that you do beforehand, unless you're consuming something like L-citrulline or something specific, some compounds or caffeine, whatever, won't make a huge difference. Sure, if in an emergency you couldn't eat, having more honey, salt, and things like that, more carbohydrates and salt to optimize that workout, sure. But to get the highest ROI, it's down to your diet, what you do consistently, and things like that. When it comes to the kiwis are nice. One thing about kiwis, this is more of a spectrum. If you're in a more compromised state, kiwis can be problematic because they're more serotonergic. Yeah.
Just got the back workout done. Halloween book. Oh yeah. Watery. But still lean mass for the most part. Oh. Cut. 3 more months of bulking. You just gotta trust the process. And the cut's gonna be insane. All these are fading away. Right here, there's some fat placement, but it's gonna be worth it at the end. Ooh. This is what happens when you eat clean on a bulk.
Yeah, like when it comes to muscle building, it all boils down to eating enough and progressive overload on the key movements. So just hitting those new strength standards for different muscle groups, and you'll reap the benefits.
Still look pretty shredded for the most part. But yeah. Okay, so cooking the second and last meal of the day as we got back from the gym. You already know we're not going out to eat because don't want seed oils, and the pickings are very slim around here, so might as well just go home and cook ground beef, rice, eggs. If I were to eat something else, it would probably be steak with eggs, maybe a potato, something red meat, lamb, bison, some beef.
Overall, like his selection for foods is not bad. It's very good. There's no like weird foods. Like I know some testosterone guys recommend nuts, peanut butter. Those are very high in polyunsaturated fats, which lower thyroid hormones and things like that. He's very high on. He's consuming more of the steak, red meats, which are lower in tryptophan, rather than like consuming a lot of like with proteins, like only the egg whites or like turkey and chicken. So he's not doing a lot of that. Yeah.
Don't need to make it complex. 1.25 pounds right there. Pop out the duck eggs. Pop out the raw milk for this meal, and then we'll get the rice going. And you don't kind of make it complex. A lot of you guys like to make it complex. You want to add some spices. I mean, fuck. If you want to add some onion powder, by all means. If you want to add some celery salt, by all means. But don't get fancy with these 5-star meals. Just eat for results.
I agree and disagree with him. Like, I remember when I was younger, like, your number priority is adding an inch to your arm, and that's all you think about, But even with that mindset of just doing the same thing every day, it's very serotonergic. It's very like mundane. And doing new things, trying new meals, trying new flavors is very dopaminergic. It's very exciting. It's good for the body. So trying different things is good within a measure of, like, does it compromise your gut, like with spices and this and that. So staying within that realm.
Fat ass always wants to eat the ground beef, but
And also it's good to just follow something consistently every day until you find a proof of concept for yourself. So then it's always something you can fall back on in case if you add a variable and it doesn't work. You always have a proof of concept that you know what works and what doesn't. And you can keep trying new things, see how it affects you, how it affects your body. And this is where you create your own protocol that works best for you. Because at the end of the day, I can give you all these theories, I can give you advice, but you know best by applying it, seeing what works, and then trying different things for yourself.
1.25 pounds, 1 cup of white rice, 2 duck eggs, same thing as last time. And I did the calculations, and I'm pretty sure this puts me at 4,800 calories on the day.
So let's break it down. So you had 258 grams of protein, extremely high, 280 grams of carbohydrates, very low, especially if he's bulking, 285 grams of fats, so 4,746 calories. And personally, if I was eating that much calories, which I have, the macro style I would personally go way lower on protein, because carbohydrates are protein sparing. People who do go higher on protein, like I mentioned before, benefit from higher protein because they're not consuming enough carbohydrates. And then I would go high on carbohydrates and I would go lower on the fats. The problem with fats, even though he's consuming good sources like the the butter, beef, eggs, all of those things. All of those fats still at the end of the day contain a small percentage of polyunsaturated fats, which if you're consuming 285 grams of fats, you're going to get 50, 40 grams or 20, 30 grams of polyunsaturated fats, which is problematic. I know Ray Pete talks about having less than 5 or something like that. And as you can see here, he doesn't track it specifically, but it's only 180 grams of saturated that it counted out of the 285 that he had. So the rest could be mono, polyunsaturated, things like that. So just going so high on fats will put you in danger of consuming a lot of polyunsaturated fats. Even coconut oil, which is saturated, it has like 3% BUFA. So that's one thing I would change. He mentioned that he's 220 pounds. If I weighed that much, I would probably go more of 154 grams of protein. I know Arnold Schwarzenegger consumed 0.7 grams of protein per pound of body weight. I would consume like 77 grams of fats. And then whatever my calorie target would be, I would hit the carbohydrates of 500 plus, and that's how I would do it. I would have a lot of carbohydrates with every protein meal that I have, and start the day with more so carbohydrates, then transition more into protein, carbohydrates, fats, and then later carbohydrates and fats. And don't be afraid of eating a lot of food before, like especially carbohydrates, before you go to sleep, because deep sleep is very energy demanding. Like rest, the ability to relax, to let your mind to relax, to recover, takes a lot of energy. So the idea, oh, you need to fast 3-4 hours before you go to sleep is messed up. The only reason why people benefit from doing that is because their current diet is problematic, which causes a lot of gut issues. So giving themselves a break from eating all these problematic things before they go to sleep is a higher ROI. But if you know what you're doing, you can eat right before you go to sleep. It's same thing with like the fasting. A lot of people do intermittent fasting because, oh, when I eat, I just have brain fog, and when I'm fasting, I feel so amazing. Yeah, because your current diet is probably causing a lot of inflammation. You're not consuming enough the right foods and things like that. And I'm telling you this based off of experience, because I've been there.
Okay, with I'm gonna drink 2 cups of raw milk, and I also had an orange before this. So 4,800.
I'd be super curious how he feels after consuming all that beef right before he went to sleep, because protein in it of itself is very stimulating. Things like maybe like dairy, gelatin, collagen is more so relaxant, anti-inflammatory, like bone broth, having it before you go to sleep. But things like beef, even eggs, can be very heavy, stimulating.
Calories. I don't know how much protein, carbs, fat. I'll pop that up on the screen. But yeah, this is my second and last meal of the day, and that's pretty much it. This is all I'm going to be eating. A lot of you guys are like, oh, can I eat the same thing? I'm going to be honest with you. No, if you ate almost 5,000 calories, you'd be a fat ass. But I'm 220 pounds and I have a lot of muscle and my metabolism's fast as shit. And
yeah, and there you go. Like what he's doing right now works for him, which is amazing. It works for the people, the clients he works with. With this video, all I wanted to do is present to you with how I would look at it, what things I would change if I was to design a client's protocol. He is eating a lot of calories, and it obviously shows that his metabolic rate is high. But remember, the metabolic rate can be high because of protective hormones or because of stress hormones. This is why when people introduce thyroid therapy into their lifestyle, they can cut their need for calories in half, because they're running on all this adrenaline and stress hormones, so they need calories to cope with it. So Same with testosterone. Testosterone on the blood test can be high due to stress or protective hormones. This is why you have to check things like prolactin, TSH, total cholesterol, vitamin D, to really see where it's coming from. But yeah, this was the breakdown. Hopefully you got some value and an understanding if you are creating your own meal plan. And yeah, I'll see you later. Peace.